Joining us is Colonel Tom Pool, who's yes on Prop 127. Colonel, thanks so much for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, morning, sir.
Jeff, Bill, thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful.
Well, we're glad to have you here because this is really the only show in Colorado where you get right, left, center. We get to have discussions. Sometimes they get passionate, but this is about people being able to share their perspective. So really appreciate you coming on our show. So I'll turn it over to you, sir. Give us your argument as to a yes vote on Proposition 127.
Well, it's heartbreaking for me that my conservative brothers and sisters simply have the wrong information here. And I have to give credit to our opponents who have done a fantastic job of misleading the electorate with these signs that say Colorado wildlife deserves better, vote no. I mean, that's like saying they deserve to be shot. But my point in this, Jeff, Bill, is that we desperately need mountain lions, and I mean every last one of them, to preserve our herds of deer and elk. We have absolutely nothing else to slow the progress of chronic wasting disease, which by the way, began in Colorado in 1967. So it's been in Colorado a long time, but it has failed to penetrate Western Colorado to any significant degree for only one reason. And it's because of the abundance of mountain lions, but it spread everywhere else. And it just now got into my home state, Oklahoma, up in the upper northwest corner, but it's going to sweep through because we don't have any mountain lions. So that's really the essence of my argument. There's a lot more to it than that, but that is the essence, that we have nothing else and we can't afford to lose 20% of them every year.
Yeah, so we're talking with Colonel Tom Pool. He's a yes on Proposition 127. By the way, a storied career with the U.S. Army, serving as one of their top veterinarians. So, Colonel, my understanding, Prop 127 will essentially, if there's a no vote, will keep the status quo of how things are. So Colorado Parks and Wildlife can manage the number of tags going out there for mountain lion hunting. They can increase it if we need to. If we have too many mountain lions, they can decrease the tags. If we have too few mountain lions, this ban on that's Proposition 127 will prohibit any future hunting of mountain lions.
Well, you can still do predation. That is, if there's a mountain lion that's causing a problem, there's nothing to prevent killing that mountain lion. It's just really going to end the trophy hunting, Jeff. And as far as, you know, the hunting of mountain lions was outlawed more than 50 years ago in California. And none of the bad things that our opponents say will happen have happened. And we've got great research that shows that there's no impact on the survivability of fawns and does whenever mountain lions were reduced. They were reduced experimentally by 50% in a study by Idaho Fish and Wildlife, and saw no impact on the survivability. So it's not like there's going to be this, you know, explosion in mountain lions that's going to, you know, eliminate, you know, herds of deer and elk. It's quite the opposite. You know, they've lived together for 8 million years, and this disease is so devastating, Jeff, Bill. We have to do something, and we have nothing else. There's nothing that slows this down, nothing that stops it. We have no medications, we have no vaccine, and we probably never will. This thing is prion, or prion, some people pronounce, and it is very weird. It's not alive, and it's extremely hard to inactivate. You know, you can't cook it and get rid of it. And the Centers for Disease Control insist that we absolutely not consume venison that might possibly be infected. And so that's going to require us forevermore to do the testing before we can consume it. And then you're really sort of betting your life on the accuracy of that test. There were 2 hunters earlier this year. The American Academy of Neurology published a report on 2 hunters in the same hunting club, great friends, hunted together, shared venison, that sort of thing. And they both developed a human form of the prion disease. It's called Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. Now that occurs spontaneously in humans in the United States at a rate of about 1 in a million per year. So the chance of one of those hunters spontaneously developing Creutzfeldt-Jakob is 1 in a million. And then the chance of the guy next to him spontaneously developing Creutzfeldt-Jakob that has nothing to do with chronic wasting disease, if that's the case, is 1 in a trillion. So in my opinion, almost certainly those hunters contracted Creutzfeldt-Jakob from eating infected venison. So
yeah, I do want to ask you. I do want to ask you. We had opponents from Proposition 127 on, formerly affiliated with. I believe they worked at some point with Colorado Parks and Wildlife, saying that the management under CPW is going quite well. The number of mountain lions have done well in this state, and we're allowing the experts to do this as opposed to ballot box biology. We'll get into wolves in a second, but what's your response to the no on 127 that said for the past 10, 20 years or so, under CPW management, our mountain lions and our elk and our deer have all been doing relatively well?
Jeff, as a fellow conservative, you're breaking my heart with asking me to trust the experts. That's just, do you trust the experts at the Department of Education? Maybe you do, to educate our kids. I don't. I don't trust the FDA anymore. 9 of the last 10 FDA commissioners left and went straight into industry, working for the people that they were supposed to be watching. The problem with, and I don't mean to imply that that's the sort of relationship that we have with Colorado Parks and Wildlife, but the issue there is that this is very unimportant to them in that it's only 0.4%. It's less than 0.5% of the hunting tags that are issued every year. Their big thing is deer and elk. They get $160 million from that, and that's where their interest is. There's absolutely no research being done that I can detect on bobcats. They have no idea how many bobcats are out there. There's no limit on bobcats. And so I don't want us to think that we've got this room full of experts that are pondering and using all of this great data to come up with this. It's just not that way. But we need these mountain lions so much, and we really need more of them, Jeff. We need every last one we can get. I mean, there's already chronic wasting disease in eastern Colorado to a significant amount, and the only thing that holds it back is the mountain lions. We simply have nothing else.
Well, I do have. I want to talk about wolves. In your perspective, do you feel like the I want to say regret that's taken place, and not entirely, but among some people, with regards to ballot box biology, and in your case, what you were saying, taking it out of the hands of experts and handing it to a voter in Boulder and a voter in Highlands Ranch to make wildlife decisions, I think has been a disaster for the state. I don't like the wolves. I think it's been a real problem for ranchers. I think it's turned people against the wolves, maybe with the exception of the first gentleman. But I think people look at that and go, we made a mistake. And now we're going to do a similar thing with mountain lion hunting and hand it to people to make that decision, as opposed to allowing the experts to make that decision. What's your response to that?
Well, it's different experts. And so, I think I'm an expert in this field. And, the Colorado Wildlife Commission is really the people that make policy. And it's not, the Parks and Wildlife. And that Colorado Wildlife Commission is 11 very talented people, but there's only one scientist on that board, Dr. Reading, and he's with us on this. So it's not like climate change where they tell us 97% of the scientists, feel one way. There's an awful lot of scientists, and I'm going to suggest more scientists in my camp, but we're just sort of in the wrong place. We're not there with California Parks and Wildlife. I understand your point about, ballot management, but I really don't think that's what we have here as much as we have trying to educate people and giving them an opportunity to, have a say in this. And this is not the sort of thing that couldn't be reversed later if you ever wanted to or something like that. But in my opinion, we are in desperate need of every last mountain lion we can get. And they're going after, we just finished our black powder season yesterday here in Oklahoma. We didn't get to hunt the last 2 days because it's been raining so much, but it's just been killing us with rain. But anyway, the point is that whenever we try to manage these things, we have to use the best science available. And the best science available, in my opinion, says that we've got to do everything we can to control chronic wasting disease, because that is the real long-term threat to deer and elk hunting. And it actually has the ability to completely eliminate the hunting of deer and elk. There's really no limit to the potential of this thing. And right now, the only thing we have that slows it down is mountain lions. We need every one. I wish I could somehow convince you of that. I'm so certain of that.
Now, that's interesting. We're talking to Colonel Tom Pool, who's in favor of Prop 127. What I'm looking at, Colonel, is we instituted the idea of having these hunts on the mountain lions because left on their own, the populations get necessarily out of control. Are we really certain that if we restrict the hunting on mountain lions, that the population is going to find its norm? The idea of, I understand what you're saying about the chronic wasting disease. I'm a little less convinced about that because I'm not certain that the mountain lions are always going to be taking those animals. And we've seen chronic wasting disease, and as you talked about it, yes, it's a prion disease, but it can jump zoonostically. So we could end up, in theory, with the chronic wasting disease crossing over into other species, including those mountain lions. Are we concerned about that at all?
Well, no. And that gets really complex. You have some good points there, but the science is not on your side on that one, in that there have been tests of just precisely what you're talking about. In fact, the best test that you want to look at is just California. There's been no hunting of mountain lions for 50 years. Did the mountain lions overpopulate? Did they decimate the herds? No. They've been self-regulating for 8 million years. And that's another important point that you brought up. You said that they're not only taking those are the ones the mountain lions want first, is that weak animal. That's what all of the predators are looking for, the weakest, the sickest, the oldest, of whatever. So they're really not hunting the same animals we are. When I'm hunting, I'm looking for the strongest, the best. They're looking for the opposite. They're looking for the weakest, the easiest to get. And they have the ability, because they've been watching mountain lions, watching deer for 8 million years, to notice that first neurologic, first false step. There's something a little bit wrong with that guy. And they can detect that long before a hunter can. And that's the one they want. And that's the one they take. And that's why they are controlling this disease as well as they are where they are. We just don't have anything else that works. As to your final question about that, for whatever reason, predators seem to be extremely resistant to diseases caused by their prey. And that's true of wolves and cats and, raptors, hawks and eagles and things like that. And so nature over the millions of years has sort of given them a sort of built-in defense that they just don't end up, these things tend to jump. The example I always use is the original, I'm sorry to say Jaws, but the dinosaur movie, Jurassic Park, when Richard Attenborough said, life finds a way. Well, disease also finds a way. And your point is that generally when you expose a disease to another species, that it often jumps into them. But that doesn't tend to happen with predators. So no, I don't think mountain lions, and moreover, mountain lions have the ability to somehow sanitize and eliminate. If you feed infected venison to hogs or dogs or almost any mammal, you're going to get prions in the feces. But when you feed it to mountain lions, you don't. And so they have a way of inactivating prions that we don't understand yet. It's got to be some combination of enzymes they have. But right now, we can only inactivate prions or prions by boiling them in 1 normal sodium hydroxide for 3 hours, which you're not going to do before you eat it. But just normal cooking is going to do nothing in terms of inactivating those prions. And there's no treatment. If you develop one of these neuromuscular diseases, these prion diseases, there's absolutely no treatment. You're a dead man walking, and it's going to be a horrible death. It's going to take less than a year to get you. So I just don't think we can overemphasize the importance of chronic wasting disease, and we can't overemphasize the fact that we have nothing else to control it short of mountain lions.
Now, with the chronic wasting disease, my understanding, though, is eventually that deer, elk, part of the populations, they die out from the disease, correct?
Well, yeah, whenever they get infected, they're definitely going to die.
Okay, so isn't that the same result as the being killed by the mountain lion?
No, because the mountain lion takes them early.
But they're both dead. The idea is taking them out of the population. Your argument earlier on was taking it out of the population. Either way, they're out of the population.
No, sir. The difference is the mountain lion takes them very early in the course of the disease, and, you know, death is going to take them, you know, 9, 10 months, a year later. And that deer has had all of that time to infect other deer. Whereas the first symptoms that mountain lion detects, that deer is out. So that's their big advantage. That's how they control it for us, is that early detection, early elimination.
Yeah, but I guess I don't understand why CPW couldn't just go, all right, we've got problems with chronic wasting disease, so we're going to limit the tags this year. Instead of 20% of mountain lions, you guys are only going to be able to get 5%. And then if chronic wasting disease goes away and, you know, we're fine to have some more mountain lions out there, okay, or fewer mountain lions, we'll increase the tags up to 20%. What I just don't get is the straight ban entirely on hunting.
Well, there's really sort of no justification. This isn't hunting, in my opinion, Jeff, and I've been a hunter all of my life. And the way this hunting works, if you don't know, is they have packs of dogs with GPS monitors, and they loose those out and they watch the GPS until it stops moving and they know that they've treed the lion in, and then they get in their four-wheeler and they drive to the base of the tree and they reach up in the tree and they shoot the lion from 15 or 20 feet away. That's not hunting. That is an embarrassment.
Is all mountain lion hunting done like that, or just some?
I think most of it is done like that. I think most of this trophy hunting, I mean, nobody's hunting mountain lions to eat them. I mean, I hope you're not.
So, but I mean, we're kind of
with that notion.
Colonel Tom, we're bouncing around a lot. I mean, it's, I guess for me, if we wanted to restrict parts of it, so let's say we even wanted to, CPW want to say no dogs. We're not going to allow dogs, or the state legislature said we're not going to allow dogs in that hunting. They could, but this Prop 127 is just a straight ban entirely. So even if you were a bow hunter that went after mountain lions, you couldn't do it. Even if CPW said, we got too many mountain lions, we want to release some tags so people can go out there and clear it out, 127 would ban that from happening. It just seems like it's so broad that it's going to tie the hands of CPW, state lawmakers, in the future.
We need every last mountain lion we can get. We need those mountain lions to go everywhere that they can possibly survive, because we need that to control the chronic wasting disease. And I just don't see that there's any, as I said, if a mountain lion is causing a problem, then you can still take those out. This is just eliminating the licensed trophy hunting of mountain lions. So any mountain lion that's causing a problem for livestock or whatever, that animal can still be removed. But it just eliminates that, because we need every last one of them. We need so many, you know, the range used to be all of North America, Central, South America. They were everywhere. Now they're just in tiny little spots. And where they are not, that's where chronic wasting disease is sweeping. We need all of them. And finally, back to your, you know, what if the mountain lions overpopulate? All of the science says that has never happened and never will happen. And it certainly didn't happen in California.
Now that's interesting, and I've been doing. I just looked because you were talking. I was looking into the idea of the chronic wasting disease and can it cross over. There has been some recent scientific studies that showing it crossing over into felines. Now there are some things as far as what happens and stuff that is inside the gut of mountain lions that do seem to protect them right now. But the idea of chronic wasting disease not being able to cross over into felines has been disproven so far. They found it in domestic cats and a couple other felines. So would we then possibly assume that possibly the disease could then be able to adapt itself to the lining of the inside of the predator, and we're just perpetuating the disease? I'm just not convinced that this is the only solution we have on the disease, personally.
I don't understand how that would perpetuate, even if it happened, and I don't think it ever will happen. But even if it did happen, it's not going to perpetuate anything. I mean, at the very worst, you've eliminated one and picked up another one, but there has been no magnification of the disease. And I would love to bet you lunch for 100 years that that's not going to happen, that the mountain lions are not going to adapt to this disease. And so
it would be the disease.
It would be the disease. It's not the same thing as a cat, as a domestic cat.
It would be the disease adapting to a new carrier, and that happens all the time. And it's already jumped into felines, so it certainly could go from the domestic cat into larger cats. Their biology is rather similar, so it's not untoward.
What difference would that make? What difference would that make, even if that happened? I don't understand what difference that would make.
This is what I'm saying, is the idea. Your premise in this has been, we need to control the chronic wasting disease. And I'm just saying that I'm not disputing that. But what I'm saying is that's your premise. And science has shown us that this disease can already cross into felines, meaning that given enough time and enough experimentation, it will evolve the ability to infect the mountain lions. That if the core is to control the chronic wasting disease, it seems like down the road, we're going to have mountain lions that will have chronic wasting disease because that's how nature works. It happens over and over and over again. And it's already going on.
Final word, Thomas, or Colonel Tom Pool.
No, sir, I would say that that is not how nature works, that the predators almost never end up adapting to those diseases. And there's no evidence that mountain lions have ever had or ever will. Their digestive systems inactivate that thing. So I hope everyone will go vote today and tomorrow. We desperately need to pass Prop 127. Please vote yes.
Colonel Tom Pool, thank you so much for taking time and having a really good, fun, lively conversation on the Jeff and Bill Show. Appreciate it, sir.
Thanks, guys. Very grateful.
Jeff and Bill, weekday mornings from 6 to 10 on News Talk 710, KNUS.